Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining us again today. Well, we have another pistol video for you here today, and this is one I suppose has been a long time coming. Previously on the channel, we've talked about the Hellcat Pro, and we've even talked about the Hellcat RDP, but admittedly, we haven't had any kind of discussion on just the Hellcat. So we're going to fix that today, and we're going to talk about the Hellcat Osp. We're going to go over all the features, and I'm going to tell you why this might very well be my new favorite carry gun. We're going to get into that in just a minute. Alright, once again, welcome back. Thanks for being with us today. If this is your first time coming to the channel, or if you have been watching our videos and have not had a chance to before now, and you like our content, please consider subscribing. You can locate the subscribe button in your lower right hand corner of your computer screen there. Or if you're on a mobile device, you can scroll down below the video and hit the subscribe button that way. It's a simple thing that helps out a whole lot, and we really appreciate it. So let's jump right in. We're talking about the Hellcat Osp. Once again, this is a pistol that, we're just now getting to, and we have looked at some of the other Hellcat models, but I think it's important that we talk about this one for a lot of reasons. But we're going to start off with the way we normally do traditionally, which is kind of give you a little size comparison on the firearm. Now, of course, one of the biggest direct competitors to the Hellcat is going to be the P365. I happen to have one of mine here next to it. This is X-Romeo Zero. And it's going to be very similar. One of the reasons I like to do this comparison, if you're new to the channel, is because the overall size, they have a similar, round count. So this will kind of give you an idea, if you're familiar with any of the comparison guns and you've carried any of them before, it'll kind of give you an idea of what it's like to carry this one, because a little bit of difference in weight and size can make a big difference in the holster. You can see they have a pretty similar overall profile. They're about the same width. They've got a very similar sight picture if you take the optic out of the equation. And of course the grip is just slightly bigger on the 365 here. Now on the X, the grip is a little bit bigger, but it holds an extra round in the standard magazine, so that's part of that. But as you can see, they're very, very similar in size. So if you're used to carrying one, you can certainly imagine what it'd be like to carry another. Another comparison I'm going to go ahead and do here is with the Glock 43X, which is a little bit bigger, but a lot of people feel like the 43X is a pretty small firearm, and when you look at it next to the Hellcat, it really gives you an idea of how compact this gun is. Because remember, your 43X is a single stack 10-round magazine. Now this is putting aside any aftermarket stuff that you can get for the firearm, but the Hellcat, the standard magazines are 11, and you can get 13s for it. And so you've got a really good round count in a smaller package, which is going to be a big benefit to a lot of people. So if you have carried either one of those firearms or something similar before, that'll give you a pretty good idea of what it's going to be like to carry the Hellcat Osp. Alright, we're going to jump right into the features here, but before we do, we want to take a moment to thank our friends over at Don's Weaponry for providing us this beautiful example of the Hellcat Osp by Springfield Armory. Don's Weaponry is a huge supporter of firearm safety and education, and we can't thank them enough. So, let's have a look here. So, we're going to do this in the traditional manner. We always kind of go from the top down with our features here. So let me do a quick safety check here. Let's remove the magazine. And you can see that we are clear. There's nothing in the chamber, nothing in the firearm, so we are good to go. So the very first thing you'll notice, of course, on the top here is you've got this cover plate, because this is a optics-ready firearm. Now, I've had some experience already with your optics on the Hellcat, because I actually tested and had the RDP for quite some time. Now, the Hellcat is not a bad firearm to use with an optic, but I think over time, as I've had a chance to evaluate doing it both ways, I've mentioned before that I'm typically not a big fan of having optics on my carry guns. I don't mind having optics on a gun. It's just on a carry gun, to me, every time you add something, you're adding bulk and you're making the gun less comfortable to carry. And one of the primary things that I stress is about making sure your carry gun is not just reliable and that it's accurate, but you need it to be comfortable, or else you'll leave it at home. But having said that, it is ready to accept an optic if that's what you choose to do. You got your sights. I really like the standard sights that come with the Hellcat. A lot of sights are really lame. I think they do a poor job on stock sights a lot of times. But this one here, you've got the combination tritium and luminescent. That high visibility front sight, I've said it 100 times, and I really mean it. If you're in a hurry, if you're stressed out and your fine motor skills are out the window, you really need that high visibility sight so you can pick up it in a hurry, acquire the target quickly and safely. I really like that. And, paired up with that white notch, it's very, very easy to get yourself on target. So you've got some decent serrations here on the slide. You got a little small gap here for more of a small specialty lights and things like that they make to fit this. You've got your slide release and lock mechanism here, only on the left-hand side, and also your takedown lever. Now, if you're familiar with this style of handgun, anytime you see a little notch right here on the slide and you see that, well, that lever, all you have to do is rotate the lever, and then you can release the slide and you can bring it all the way forward to take it off. Then, of course, your spring and your rod come out and then your barrel tips out, and you can clean the firearm like you're used to doing with hundreds of others that are configured the same way. So it's very simple. Your grip, I like the grip texturing that they've done. A lot of these smaller handguns, they either go one direction and make it way too aggressive, or they make it way too slick. And I think the Hellcat, they've struck a really good balance of this being very comfortable in the hand, but it also feels like a solid grip. You don't feel like you're going to have it fall out of your hand. And you have this little, patch forward. There are people I've seen that utilize this forward section. I don't hold my handgun that way. I've seen people that do it, but I don't utilize this. In fact, I do a great deal of my shooting practice one-handed, just because as a defensive firearm, it's going to come from one side, and I actually, the way I train, I want to be able to, if you're facing a potential situation where your firearm may come out, you are no doubt going to be speaking, trying to de-escalate or get a resolution that doesn't result in using your firearm. So if I have one hand already out telling someone, hey, stop, buddy, that's close enough, I don't know you, whatever it is, then if I can have the other hand to deploy my weapon, then that's typically what I'm going to do. So I do a lot of shooting practice with one hand, and it's not a bad idea anyway, just to make sure that you're proficient with one hand, just like with two. Having said that, moving along, you've got your magazine release here, and it's in a good spot. I like the way they have it built into a small rise, and it's just enough to where when you're holding the gun, whether it's a two-handed grip or a one-handed grip, I never feel like I'm going to accidentally eject the magazine. You have to make a point to push on the forward section of it, but once you do, it comes right out. The trigger. An when I first got this gun and I started practicing with it, I noticed there's a kind of an area at the beginning of the trigger, and I'll cover this more in the range section. Little kind of a smudgy little area you come through here of resistance before you hit the wall, and then very, very short snap, and then the reset is pretty good, and then a nice snappy trigger again. But if you let it all the way out, it just seems like it's a little spongy between here and the back. Now, I thought that was going to be a bad thing until I started practicing with it, and I realized that it's actually a better feel than I would have initially thought. And like I said, we'll talk about that more in the range in just one second. And of course, you've got your magazines with the little pinky extension there, and I have pretty good size hands, and with the pinky extension, my hand is completely comfortable on this firearm. So I think that it fits a good hand well. It's a pretty well made gun. You got your 3-inch hammer forged barrel with the melanite finish. You've got the finish on the slide, the Melonite finish, same way. It's a nice looking gun. It looks like it's got good fit and finish quality. It's got a pretty good overall feature set. So I think that it's a nice firearm, and it's a good size with lots of features. All right, let's talk about the range. I was looking forward to shooting the firearm because, once again, I've had experience with both the Pro, and I like the way the Pro shot really well. And the RDP, I like the way it shot. The only issue I have with the RDP is, of course, this compensator, is nice. The weapon does shoot well with the compensator on it, and it's nice to have a red dot. But once again, the firearm gets a little big when you start adding all this stuff to it. And I thought, well, be just my luck. I get the not as fancy version, and it won't be as good of a shooter. So, for the purposes of the range test here, I use several types of standard range ammo. Your good old Federal white box here, some of the PMC, and the S&B. All this ammo, no problems feeding, no issues actually shooting it. Of course, defensive ammo, I never test a gun without testing it with defensive ammo. I always use two different kinds of the SIG here, the 124 and the 115, just because, some firearms tend to shoot better with different kinds of ammo. The critical duty and the gold dot. The gold dot actually did really good. I've been recently using more of the 124 gold dot, and that's a pretty good round too. Now, ultimately, I did the best job with the SIG V Crown 115 grain, and there are a lot of smaller 9mm pistols that I have ended up using this same round in that were the most accurate. And for me, once again, this is just for me. I'm always trying to be very clear about that. This is for my shooting. Obviously, I can tell you all day long how well I can shoot, or show you how I could shoot. And that's one reason why I don't waste time with range videos, because somebody watching me shoot isn't going to make you a better shooter. And it doesn't tell you anything except what I pulled off with the firearm. But I am going to show you something, though, because I think it's relevant. So, when I took this firearm out to the range, I wasn't sure if I was going to do as well as I'd done with other versions of it. And the first target, now keep in mind, this is shooting as fast as I can. So I loaded up the magazines. This is at 21 feet. So as fast as I can, the first two magazines I put through the gun look like this. You can see where I was having to correct, and then once I corrected, I was kind of hitting my sweet spot right there. I felt pretty good about that. But by the very next target, we were doing considerably better. And I'll tell you why. So, remember I told you that I felt like the trigger was just a little bit spongy. And I've talked to people who have put Apex triggers in these, and they felt like that made a much better gun. Once I got used to this, I felt like that wasn't necessary at all. Because once you get, for lack of a better word, once you get going, and you are shooting, as long as you're getting that reset and you're getting right back on that trigger pull, it's a very repeatable trigger performance. I mean, it's really nice. So I was able to get used to the way this gun shoots, really quickly, and I actually feel like I did a better job with the regular OSP than I did when I had the fancier version with the compensator on it. So it's not very often I take a gun to the range and I immediately love it and start considering, that this could be a replacement for what I'm currently carrying. It's not very often I pick up a gun and decide, this is going to be my carry gun. But there's a lot of things the Hellcat has going for it that are kind of placing it in that category for me. So, extremely good shooting gun at the range, extremely accurate. And it's like I say, once again, my performance doesn't necessarily speak to anybody else's, but it didn't take me very long to start producing really good groups with the firearm, and I didn't have any failures. So I was very pleased with the way it shoots. So what's it like to carry the Hellcat OSP as a carry gun? Well, in a word, it's really nice. I was pretty impressed. You're talking to an individual that very commonly carries the following firearms as carry guns. I will commonly carry a 5-shot 642 Smith, 38 special. I often carry HK P30 SK. I will often carry a Glock 36. Now these guns are all very much different than each other. They're as different from each other as you can possibly be. But they're different levels of comfort. And of course, the little 5-shot revolver is probably the smallest, most compact, and ultimately the most comfortable thing I carry. This Hellcat is the first semi-auto that I have carried on me that I've seriously considered that was equal in comfort to my small revolver. And there's a couple of different ways I carry this kind of experiment. When I get to this size gun, when I get in the micro compact department, I'm very commonly going to pocket carry. So I wanted to try this out and see how it did. And so I did. Sticky holster for pocket carry. Very, very, very easy. This is a very small package. You already know how big the pistol is, so you can see the sticky doesn't take up that much more of an outline. It allows you to place this, in the pocket in an upright position where you can draw right from your pocket. And of course, you're going to want to remove the sticky from your pocket to reholster, if you get finished with whatever you're doing, whether you were taking the gun out for whatever reason. But it's very small, it's very compact, it's very comfortable in the pocket. Now, if you want to carry in the waistband, there's tons of ways to do that too, obviously. I've got lots of little holsters around that fit this gun very well. So I took one of the more basic ones here. And this little TX4 Victory, little Tagua holster. They make lots of versions of this holster. I have several of these, and I like them because it's a very simple little holster that you can wear either in or outside the waistband. And in this case, as small and light as this gun is, I just did single clip inside the waistband, and it's really, really nice. Like I say, this firearm is so small, and it doesn't have any really bothersome edges to it, so I was very, very comfortable carrying it both ways. There's, once again, tons of other holster options. The Hellcat is extremely popular, so you're not going to have any trouble finding a holster that you're going to like. But the weight of the Hellcat with full magazines is, nothing. I typically, when I've been carrying this, I actually keep a few extra magazines in the briefcase, so I'm not just with one. But I'm pretty comfortable with just the standard capacity. An 11-round magazine, and of course you've got 13-round extended magazines. To me, 11 rounds is more than enough for virtually any situation that I'm going to run into. That's just my comfort level. You need to make sure that you carry what you're comfortable with. But one thing I can tell you for sure is that this weapon is of a good size and a good weight. With a decent holster or in the pocket, it's extremely comfortable for everyday carry. So overall impressions of the Hellcat OSP. Well, as I mentioned before, I always look for certain things in a carry gun. And this is me. I try to relate as best I can to my viewers why I think the different things are important that I focus on. But the reason I stick with my top 3 list, which is never going to change, accuracy, reliability, and comfort, is for a reason. I think that a gun can be simple and still be the best choice. Because at the end of the day, ultimately, this is something you hope you're not going to need, but if you do need it, you need to be able to bet your life on it. The Hellcat does some things correctly that are very important for me. The first thing it does correctly is it has a very good factory sight picture. Okay? And it's very comfortable for a variety of hand sizes. If you have a larger hand like me, or if you have a smaller hand, it doesn't matter. Very comfortable to hold this firearm, whether it's a two-hand or a single-handed grip. So both for training and when it's the real deal, it's a good solid feel, a good sight picture, so you can acquire your target quickly, and you can be very accurate with the firearm, which is the second thing. It's a very good shooting firearm. You get a feel for the trigger, you practice with it. I was able to achieve, as you saw in the range section we talked about. By my very second target, I was very, very pleased. Most of those rounds were inside of a group of about, an inch and a half or so at 21 feet. And that's shooting as fast as I can. If I was taking my time, I probably could have done a lot better. But I try to practice the same way that I would actually have to use the firearm, and that's more of a hurried scenario. So it has good capacity. There are people who are obsessed with higher capacity firearms. 11 rounds in the standard magazine, 13 in the extended. I'm perfectly happy with 11, but 13's nice. It has a good durable finish, and it's proven in the field so far to be a very reliable firearm. So for a shade over $600, which is the MSRP on this firearm, I think you're getting a lot, because that same price category gets you into plenty of Glocks. There's plenty of Smith & Wesson M&Ps, your SIG P365s, etc. There's a lot of firearms that fall in that same price range for the same type of firearm. And I think that this is one of the better offerings that you can get for the money. So if you want a easily concealable firearm that shoots well, that's comfortable, that's equipped very well right out of the box, I think it's extremely difficult to make a bad decision if you choose to go with the Hellcat OSP. So there it is. All right. Well, that's going to do it for today. As always, we thank you so much for being with us. We'll be back very soon with another video for you. So until that time, as always, everybody be safe and have a great day. Thank you.